Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one!
Oladipo!
One! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Works down by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Jim Coyle here as always. Dylan Sinn jumping in on us with us as well. Hope you're had a great week and ready for the weekend. It looks pretty nice out there, Dylan. Looks like Chamber of Commerce weather, man.
Of course. It's one of those really nice fall Fridays for football. You get nice and cool and just a beautiful day.
Perfect night for high school football. If it's, I haven't even checked the weather. Hope it stays like this all weekend. But man, that just looks, it's a little crisp out there. Had to get the long sleeves on today, even, man. You've got the sweater on. So yeah, it definitely fall weather, but it sure is nice when it comes around. But I hate to think of what's next, that winter thing. I'm not a fan of winter. Not a big fan of that, but unfortunately, into each life, a little cold must fall, it seems like. How's your week been, man?
It's been good. It's been good. Just getting ready for college football again this weekend. I'll be in Chicago tomorrow for Notre Dame, Wisconsin. College game day will be there as well, so very excited about that. And high school. Oh yeah. Now, is that
at Soldier Field or is that at Wrigley?
No, it's at Soldier Field. Yeah, NFL stadium. It's the first NFL stadium I've ever been to. So, yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, that should be a great game. I think Whiskey's a 6.5-point favorite in that game.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, quite frankly. I don't think we know how good either of these teams really is.
That's the only thing surprising to me. It's not because if I had watched Notre Dame, I'd make anybody they're playing a 6.5-point favorite. But, I agree. You don't know how good Wisconsin – they're not the Wisconsin of the last few years.
No, and people were very high on them when the season started because they thought Graham Mertz would be good and they'd have a good running attack. But they don't really have a Jonathan Taylor on the team this year. Graham Mertz doesn't seem like he's the guy. The defense seems to be good again. They held Penn State to just 16 points. But yeah, it's unclear how good that offense is. It's possible that they're more like just like Iowa, where they have a really good defense, but the offense just can't move the ball particularly well.
That sounds like Indiana.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, there are a lot of teams in the Big Ten like that this year. It is a down year for offense in the Big Ten, outside of Penn State, Michigan, maybe Michigan State. And so, yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that game goes, because I think that's one of those games where even in week 4 now, we're still really not sure, not just how good either of those teams is, but what they actually are in terms of identity.
Yeah, Ross says 42 degrees hoodie season. You got that right.
Absolutely.
Don't start talking about the Cardinals, man. Don't end my week with this crap. Freaking Cardinals, 12 in a row, man. The Reds have just – you talk about tanking. Wow. The Reds tanked, man.
Is it even so much? Is even so much that the Reds tanked as it is the Cardinals just won every single game down the stretch?
Well, I think it's a little both. It didn't help but the fact that the Cardinals haven't lost since last season, it seems like. But, yeah. But, hey, man, you got to give them credit. You win 12 in a row in September. That's major. That's big old brass ones. That's big stuff there, man. That's winning when you need to win. I mean, nobody wins 12 in a row in September. It's
right.
It's hard to do. You're either resting players, they're hurt. It's just always something. That's impressive to me. And I hate it, but not really, but just fun to talk about. But yeah, hey, what a run they've been on. Ross is getting ready for the ride over to WKU tomorrow for the Indiana. Nope, no bandwagon jumping on for me, baby. Nope. I'll stick to I'm used to sitting on the sidelines for the playoffs. Yeah, for the Reds especially. But yeah, man. Let's see, beating the Dodgers, Padres, and the Brewers. 2 tough ways to go, too.
Yeah.
Two division leaders. But both of those division leaders, I don't know that they make any adjustments because they've got the playoffs wrapped. They've got the division won. Are they making it easier?
No,
it's hard in baseball. I mean, in baseball, you can't make it a ton easier unless you really drop everybody out other than a little bit of pitching because you got pretty much the same guys in.
Right. And I do think the Dodgers are still in a divisional race. They're still neck and neck with the Giants. They have been all this September. So I don't think they were taking it easy. I doubt the Brewers were, especially because if you're the Brewers, you don't want a hot team like the Cardinals to end up facing you in the playoffs. You would want to make sure they stay out too. So I doubt any of those teams took it easy. And like you said, it's their longest winning streak in 25 years. I think someone said so.
That's saying something for a Cardinals organization.
Exactly. I mean, the longest winning streak in Cardinals history, I think, is 14. So yeah, it's been
bit like
it's crazy.
The Oakland Athletics of the Billy Beane era.
Yeah, when they got that 20 in a row. So
but what happened to them? They got in the playoffs and
Yep. I mean, that's the thing is the playoffs are such a small sample size. You never know what's going to happen. And then the Cardinals are going to face either the Dodgers or the Giants in the wild card game. The Dodgers and Giants have been 2 of the 3 best teams in baseball all year long. And then you one of them is not going to play more than 1 game in the playoffs. So
Renata, yeah, still being a Cubs fan, I hear you, man. Yeah. Dave Cattell, man, you got to rub it in a little bit. 77 degrees and sunny down in Jacksonville, Florida, where he's listening. Man, It must be nice. Wyatt said the National League East race is getting really tight as well. Going to be a fun rest of the season. I love when you have divisional races. It's actually fun to watch, but at least a little tighter than normal this year. So something to do.
Absolutely. This NL West race that's been playing out it's been basically neck and neck between the Dodgers and Giants the entire season, and that's
with the Padres who are fighting for a playoff spot on top of that.
It has been a lot of fun all season, it's been really fun to watch, and it's old school rivalries, right? I got Dodgers Giants, one of the oldest rivalries in all of baseball. They're both going to win 100 games this year. That's a lot of fun.
If the Reds were still in the National League West, that would be old school. Dumb, but old school. Yeah. And what I mean by that, if you're younger, the Reds used to be in the National League West division forever. With Houston and the Dodgers and the Giants and all those. It made no freaking sense whatsoever. But you got used to it. And the Reds-Dodgers was a pretty good rivalry. But yeah, they finally they got smart and made the divisions the way they were supposed to be. Ross said it was a great game last night at Marshall and App State, 31-30 in Boone, North Carolina. It is beautiful. I've been there. That's up in the mountains. As a matter of fact, do some skiing there in Boone, North Carolina. But App State, man, how about I didn't see that game, but App State seems to pop up every couple of years, man. They get your attention somehow.
Yeah, and if you saw that at the end of that game, they learned from Penn State's loss to Indiana last year when they were up by 1 point with about 1:45 left, and the running back for Appalachian State had a clear path to the end zone, and he went down at the 2-yard line, slid down on purpose, and they were able to kneel the clock out rather than going in for the touchdown and giving Marshall the ball back. They learned from Penn State's mistake.
Yeah, and speaking of NCAA football, the NCAA Oversight Committee has moved forward a recommendation to increase the 2022 signing class limit up to 7 additional spots. as a way to offset transfer departures. Also, though, this should help with – they're going to have to deal with this COVID bonus year for years to come. It's going to take a long time to wash that out. When you give that many people a bonus season, man, it's going to take a while to wash that back out. So this maybe should aid with that as well. But normally, it's currently the NCAA rules only allow for up to 25 players in a new football signing class and 85 total scholarship players. I think there's a school like Kansas. I think they're screwed because they lost like 35 players one year or something. They were just under, but they're screwed in so many ways because they hired Les Miles. So they'll be cleaning that mess up for a long, long time. But an additional 7 more players, you wouldn't think that makes a huge difference. But I guarantee you ask a football coach, and if you told him 2, he would probably be excited. And 7, they're like, oh, crap. Yeah, I need this, and this. It's like, boy, they start thinking like they're going to the grocery store. But that will, I think, help both alleviate the transferred issue and the COVID situation.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I would say the same thing. Kansas, especially, they have Lance Leipold, who comes from a lower division as their coach now, so he knows you can get guys from all over the place. And I would assume that'll be a significant part of what Kansas does going forward. But yeah, I mean, it helps teams shore up depth, right? If you lose players to the transfer portal, even if they're guys that weren't starting for you, you want to make sure you have backups in place, right? And so that'll help those teams going forward as well.
Well, it's not just that. It's also the high school seniors have been hit because, like I said, the COVID thing, allowing people to stay, kind of push them down. So that will give some breathing room for them. Then there's also programs that may push guys out to get transfers in. So this gives you a little more breathing room along with that as well. Now, this is it's a proposal, is a 1-year waiver, but the issue is not going away. Like I said, you can't do this doing this for 1 year is like putting a Band-Aid on a surgical procedure. Yeah. What the hell is that going to do? You've got 5 or 6 years of classes that are going to do this. So doing this 1 year is not going to do jack squat, but it's a 1-year proposal. The group will continue to work on the long-term solution, annual solution, and the timetable, what led to that compromise. So they'll deal with it year to year. But yeah, they're going to have to, this is not something that I can think that can be done just one time.
Yeah, I would assume you're right, and it's one of those things where
let me assume I'm right. I'm always right.
Yeah. the NCAA bureaucracy does move so slowly that I would bet that they do it 1 year and they realize it's working and they make it more either permanent or at least for the next five or so years. Because yeah, absolutely, it's something that is going to need to be fixed going forward as well.
We got to take a break. I know Pete mentioned Ryder Cup earlier, so we'll talk about some Ryder Cup action when we come back. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with me. Zach Osterman's on today. See what else we can get scared up for you. Lots to get to. Back with it. Brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Man, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. If you're looking for a Honda, no place better to go than Andy Moore. If you're in the mood for a new market, Andy Moore of Bloomington has the best deals for you. How about a brand new 2021 or 2022 Honda Pilot? 0% APR financing, 48 months, $0 down. Or how about a brand new 2021 Honda Passport? Also 0% APR financing over 48 months and $0 down. Get more to your door, AndyMooreHonda.com. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. Well, wasn't that? We'll be back with more. That was pretty good, wasn't it?
Those live reads are a real good way to exit. I think it's a very seamless transition.
That's because I'm a professional, John. Yes, I agree with you. And written down makes it so much better than.
Well, and that's what I mean, the written down versions, because I know you were doing them from the top of your head before.
Which There's not a lot in this head, and doing anything off the top is like jumping off of a ski slope. I'm on fire today, Dylan.
Hey, it's Friday. Why not?
Are you going down to Bowling Green tomorrow, Jim?
You know what? It's a sore subject right now. I don't think I am, and I don't think I'm that upset about it.
Okay.
Now, I planned on going, and I made the mistake of requesting credentials for both myself and the writer through Rivals, which I never do that for obvious reasons. But I try not to request the Rivals, try to keep them separate. But they don't have hardly any room down there. It's tiny. Most of the people, half the people that are going down are sitting outside now as it is. So I've got a writer going down for Rivals, but since I requested under the same one, they were thinking it was two. I screwed up. I should have just sent it as Indiana Sports Beat. So I don't think that I am, which again, I'm not that disappointed. This will be a rare Saturday, not off, but
You don't have to be up till 1 a.m. down in Bowling Green.
yeah, that would be horrific. And even though it's just Bowling Green, that's a close home game.
But here's the other thing. You also switch time zones going down there. So when you come back, you lose an hour.
Trust me, that kills you too. So long answer to your question. I don't think so. We have people down there, but
I gotcha.
But I think I'm gonna happily prepare for the rest of the Big Ten season. I'd like to go to Happy Valley.
Aren't you going to be at Hoosier Hysteria?
But I will be at Hoosier Hysteria.
Yeah.
So we'll be going to Happy Valley this year.
I don't think it's a good idea for anyone from IU to go to Happy Valley. It will be a waste of time.
I agree with you, but there's so much going on that I had no idea until I wrote it down.
Waste of time. That's like a death sentence, Dylan. I was telling
so
Jim yesterday. There's no chance, you don't think?
No.
All right, whatever. I think it'll be close. I'm not saying they'll win, but hey, we got to listen to it.
I'll tell you what, I agree with you. It will be close at kickoff.
Okay.
And that's as close as that game is going to be.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. On this Friday, it is beautiful out there. I don't see a cloud, baby. What a great segue. If you're looking for a home in the Indy area, need Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Cheryl has over 2 decades of experience that could make the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Indy Home Pros. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Kind of leads me into Jermaine O'Neal's $9.9 million home listing boasts he's one of the greatest players. It's still for sale. If you're interested, I'm sure Cheryl Sizemore will get that one taken care of for you. I'm sure she'd even take a cut or get a reduced down for you. $9.9 million, baby. Mansion. It's in Texas. It doesn't name the former Indiana Pacer by name, but it certainly talks about him. The spectacular 4.8-acre estate was custom built by one of the world's greatest basketball players. The description of the home reads, in other words, yes, the 16,477 square foot palace has a regulation size indoor basketball court with separate entrance. It has a dual lane bowling alley, an exercise gym, and a game room with a wet bar. The massive outdoor area features a pool with a slide, spa, and a hot tub, fountains, and a tanning ledge. 6-car garage. Master suite comes with a huge bath and dressing complex. But the seller being one of the greatest basketball players, that's a tad unusual to include in a real estate listing, said Laura Musel from an Indianapolis area real estate, another area company. The only reason you would put something like that in there is to get people's attention. Of course. Yeah. Well, yeah, it makes sense. You don't trust me. People that have money that grew up wanting to be athletes, that's when you see a lot of the guys on courtside that have the great seats. They didn't have most of them didn't have the athletic ability, but they have the money to get close. And that's how they do it. I mean, that's an example. I mean, I promise you, someone would buy that. That would play into a part. They would think that that's cool. And I get it. Of course it would.
Yeah.
And it brings me into another segue into another thing, Dylan. This is one of the things that scares me about NIL. Everything's legal now, but you have people that say, "Oh, I'm not doing this for me," and monetarily they're not, but I promise you, they're doing it for something. So be wary of anybody that says, "Oh, I'm not in it. I'm not doing this for me. This is all for the kids." Yeah,
Sure.
Beware. Yeah, right. Whatever. No, I promise you, there are reasons behind it. They don't have to be monetary, but I assure you, there are selfish reasons behind a lot of those acts. Not every act, but when you see things like that, yeah. I mean, it's like this, man. It's been kind of quiet, but that's because to me, it's like a volcano now. It is just lava underground, just ready to explode at any moment. Not necessarily a bad thing, but boom, this player just signed this. You have no idea what's going on, who's talking to whom. And that's a scary thing. I mean, because they've gone from 0 to 100 on this issue, Dylan, where you couldn't, Steve Alford, we've gone from getting suspended for allowing a picture to be taken for a charity calendar to nothing is off the table, basically. You can't go from 0 to 100 and not not leave a lot of doors open.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is as you said, there's just about everything is legal right now. So it's people are still kind of feeling out the boundaries of what you can get away with, and so it's going to create some opportunities for people who are not quite on the level to either take advantage of some players or for players to do things that would probably be considered untoward even by the current rules. But you got to say it's still better than the previous scenario where you are suspending people for posing for a charity calendar, which is still one of the more absurd moments in the history of the NCAA, which is saying something. When even Bob Knight thinks that a rule is being broken, it shouldn't matter that much, then you probably messed up if you're the NCAA in that situation.
Absolutely, and it's just funny when you stand on a perch so long and you pound that pulpit. No, this is bad. No, absolutely. Under no. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that. That's what they've screamed no, and pounded the pulpit for all these years. And I mean, until they pounded a hole in it. And then with a snap of a finger, it's all gone.
Yeah. I mean, they like that. That's what happened with the NCAA is they overplayed their hand, right? They could have given on this issue a little
Always
bit.
Always have.
Yep. And they seem to think they were going to have basically allies on their side in kind of the wider legal establishment in perpetuity. And that's just not the case. People realize that it was a scam that the NCAA was running.
Is it the NCAA's fault? And because we have to be careful, the NCAA is an organization, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, but it is not. Who started the NCAA? Did the schools start this, or did somebody else start the NCAA? Because the NCAA is the self-regulating agency, I guess you'd say, of the universities, but they're not. They're managed by them, but it's a weird situation. It's like Major League Baseball having an outside agency manage things for them.
Right. Well, I mean, that's supposed to be the point, is that the commissioner in baseball is supposed to be independent. And that was the whole point of the commissioner. But nowadays, like the commissioner, he works for the owners because the owners can get rid of him whenever they want. Right. So in essence, he just kind of does what the owners want him to do. And the NCAA mostly has done what the schools in general, the consensus, want them to do. But there have been times where they could have relaxed the rules a little bit. I don't think most schools would have crowed about it, but they went so hard on, well, it's amateurism. If we let them make any money at all, it would be amateurism would be tainted, and people wouldn't come watch the games anymore, which was always patently absurd.
But right? I still, is this the NCAA or the schools that actually deserve the blame for this? I think it's the schools. The schools have always been the ones that, like, oh, no. We have to keep that. We have to keep that merchandise. We have to keep this. We have to keep that. And it was just the easiest way is to make, oh, no, yeah, you can't do any of it. The kids can't do any of it. And that's the easy way to do it. And the schools get everything. There's no way you couldn't look and see this coming. And they didn't. Their head was up their butt so far that that's just why now we're in this situation. And the reason I say this is because I don't know where this is going to end up. With everything now, when you go from 0 to 100 that quickly, it's like having a place that has laws and then taking laws away. Well, it's going to get a little crazy out there, folks. God knows what's going on in places that were already cheating. What the hell do you think is happening there? Seriously. And so, yeah, I think I don't know that it's going to help parity, which it should.
Oh, it's not. No.
But I think it's going to make the rich richer. I think it's going to make it worse. I think the rich are going to get richer. But now it might give a few places opportunities, like in Indiana, with a basketball program that has been dormant, but just waiting for that right magical water to be sprinkled on, because a blue blood is a blue blood is a blue blood. And Indiana is a blue blood. They have just been dormant. But all it takes is that right special sauce, and it will freaking explode.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that I don't think it's going to increase parity, but I don't think that was the point, right? I think it was about basically saying, okay, these guys have a right to do this, and that's what the state government said. Like the reason the NCAA did this was because their hand was forced by some state governments saying that regardless of what it does to the competition, players should be allowed to do this. There's no reason that players should not be allowed to do what every other college student can do, and not have a stake in their jersey sales or be able to do what they want and sign autographs for a few $100 a pop, right? Like this was for the players. It wasn't for the overall college athletics ecosystem. But I don't think it'll increase parity, but it's hard for the rich to get much richer in college sports than they already are. I mean, we've seen in college football, the same 3 teams have won for the last 8 years now. And that was before this happened.
But so, Clemson and Ohio State both down this season, which is ironic. Which is ironic in the first year of the NIL. They're going to be down a little bit. I don't see either of those teams making the college football playoff personally, in my opinion. But which is just kind of funny that is going to happen in that first season. But I think that it would just be a season or two for that, and they'll come storming back.
You'd think so, but it is going to be, and this is probably just a coincidence, but it is funny that it seems like we're headed toward the most wide open college football season in a fair amount of time here, in at least 5 or 6 years, in the first year that NIL is legal. And that's probably a complete coincidence. Like Ohio State and Clemson were headed for kind of a drop off with Lawrence and Fields leaving, and Oklahoma just doesn't seem to be as good as everyone thought they were, and all that stuff. But we might get some new teams in the playoff this year, and wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, it could be a coincidence, but I found it very funny that, and coincidental, that the year after the Adidas scandal, that the two biggest Nike schools and another Adidas school, Kansas, Duke, and Kentucky, just happened to coincidentally go into the tank at the same time.
Yeah.
See, I don't find that coincidental. But I think when things are that obvious, yeah, you can make your own decisions, but not when you've got years and years and years and years and years in a row, and apparently nothing changed, but all of a sudden something changed, and both, yeah, whatever. Okay. So if you don't think that stuff will continue to go on, it will. And it's like there are groups that are doing things with schools. You have no idea how much some player, I do. I don't want to say it, but you have no idea how much an event, all right, let's say a Kentucky basketball event where they get the players involved. Do you know what that can pull in on a weekend deal?
It's thousands and thousands of dollars. It is a
how about hundreds?
Staggering
How about
yeah.
hundreds of thousands? How about
yes.
$250,000, $250K, and then you split that up amongst 13 guys, not equally either. Sliding scale. It's like the NBA, man. The guy on the end of the bench is not getting what the guy at the front of the bench is getting.
Yeah.
But even if you did do that equally, I'm trying to be quick with a computer or my calculator. Then I screwed up and made it 2.5 million, but
doing some high level math here on the show.
Well, I could have just done it by 25, but what I say with 13 players, if you did it equally, that's a $19,000 check. That doesn't seem right, but it is. Each. But I promise you, like I said, it's a sliding scale. So you're going to have probably $50,000 for that event alone for a player to pull in. One event. He didn't do basically anything. He just made 50 grand.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it opens up a lot of possibilities for these players who are, we've talked about this ad nauseum before, but they're the ones doing the work, right? There's no reason they shouldn't be entitled to some cut of the ecosystem that's being created because they're out there on the court. You know, all these people are there to see them.
But what about people that are not involved with schools that are that are putting together NIL deals for players that have nothing to do with the schools and nothing to do with the players? They're getting involved in that business, whether it's for the program or the kids' sake. That's the danger I'm talking about. That's Happy. I keep saying it over and over. It's Happy from Blue Chips. The Happy character from Blue Chips. He's the guy that he just wants to be around the program, wants to be around the guys, feel like, you know, that the level of importance because of that. And that's the things that's what scares me, those people, because where's the line for them?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to be something that I'm sure we'll still get college sport. Like NIL is not going to end college sports scandals, right? Because people are still going to push the envelope and push the line and see what they can get away with. And people are going to go too far, just like they have in the past. And people are going to get caught just like they have in the past. And so there are still going to be college sports scandals. And I would assume the NCAA is going to crack down on some of these schools that go too far, even harder than they did before, just to kind of make it clear that they're still in the enforcement business, which some people are wondering whether they're just going to let people go. And I think they're going to try to make it clear that they're not going to do that.
Oh, see, Ross says NFL announced a Monday night wild card game. Seems unfair to the winner. It gets a short week. Life's unfair, baby. If you're in the wild cards because you weren't good enough to get into the regular playoffs, you're lucky to be in there, right? Just kidding. Wyatt wishes that the baseball would get rid of the commissioner. Is that Manfred?
Yes.
He is the most he is the most unknown commissioner in major sports. And for me to say that is crazy because I am more familiar with the freaking NHL commissioner than I am him, and I don't watch hockey a lick. But you cannot be a commissioner of a major sports program and not be a household name, well, at least to sports people. And I don't think that he is. And sometimes that's good if things aren't going badly, but that means you're not doing things to stir excitement up either. I mean, I can't think of the name of the basketball commissioner's name, but wow, they should have hired 2 commissioners. This is going to sound horrible, but man, every time I see him on screen, it scares the living crap out of me. He looks like a Halloween costume that just, I'm like, wow, it's scary, but being a little harsh, but oh well. Hey, we got lots more coming up. Zach Osterman is going to join us, and we've got basketball and football to talk about. Back with it here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty. If you're looking for a home in the Indy area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience that could be the difference in getting you the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com, or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Indy Home Pros. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home that you want today. Back with more after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for...
Yeah, Adam Silver, it looks like Adam West, and he's been dead for 20 years.
Huh. It is funny. Manfred he's not only nondescript as kind of a person, but
he looks like he's afraid that he's in the wrong place all the time.
Well, it's because he has no actual power. He is there to do what the owners tell him, and
I'd
no
be cool
more,
with that.
no less. Yeah,
I would be so cool with that. I would come in. I'd be like Ted Lasso, baby. How y'all doing? How we doing today? I'm getting paid no matter what, and I don't have to do a damn thing. I've got no responsibility, and I'm getting paid, and I'm on national TV. How y'all doing today? Anybody need a Starbucks? Can I get you an espresso? I'd be jacked.
I will say his job is to be kind of a public whipping boy for the owners, though, right? He was the one that was out there whenever there's kind of an issue, like with the sticky tack or with the Astro thing.
What does he get paid? He gets paid well. Whip my ass, baby. I'll take ass whipping for the money he makes.
There's a photo on Twitter of, I don't even know how to explain it. It's a Georgia recruit and Tom Crean looking very creepy behind him. And the Georgia recruit posted this picture.
Well, why don't you pull it up?
I will. I wanted to explain it before I brought it up in case you didn't want me to.
Well, you show it to us now. It would be easier so we can see it.
Let me see if I can. I got a minute and a half, so let me see if I can get it real quick.
Oh, how about? Oh man. How about Kalen DeBoer?
Yeah, I told you last week. I said it. Fresno State's actually good. They're not just good for a group of 5 team. They are actually good. And we saw that when they played Oregon.
All right, here's the photo. We only got a few seconds left. I just wanted to go ahead and throw this out here before we get going. Jim.
Yeah, let's post that. Who is that player? Do you know?
I don't know who it is, but it is some sort of recruit. Yeah, but here we go.
Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Oh, welcome back. I hope you had a great week and a great week of sleep. Speaking of Aurora, Royal Specialty Sleep. You know, this was started by Dr. Steve Green, dentist, former Indiana basketball player, Bob Knight's first recruit from Silver Creek High School, by the way. Also, Brian Evans is involved. But does someone you know that you spend time with snore, have sleep apnea? You need to go see our friends at Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic, Dr. Steve Green, Brian Evans, waiting to help you get the night of sleep that you've been looking for. I can tell you right now, I use it. I've used it. It works. It's unbelievable. It's just like a couple of teeth whitening trays. But visit aurorasleep.com. And for all of our sponsors, man, that's how we're able to do what we are able to do, go to the games to cover for you guys or these sponsors. So make sure you're supporting those who support us to bring this stuff to you, whether it's Aurora Sleep Clinic or Southern Stone Restaurant, Andy Moore Honda, Cheryl Sizemore Realty, Remax, Bubba's 33, Reynolds Family Dentistry. I don't want to miss anybody, but, support those who support us, because that's how we're able to bring this content to you guys, wherever I know some of you guys, a lot of you guys are not in the state. You're out and around, which we appreciate. People from Australia and Georgia, and isn't that wild, Dustin? We have listeners in Australia and Georgia and Michigan and Northern Indiana and Florida, Arizona. It just blows my mind. But you got people all over the place looking for the content every day, and we're here for it. But support those that support you whenever you can.
There you go.
Let's see. What did Pete say? Penix tweet earlier. I have lost one, failed, cried, laughed, and loved, but I never have folded and never will. No, that's nice. I think people would rather see that on the field than see that in a tweet. I mean, that's nice. I'm not getting on him. He's been through a lot. I don't know that I don't know how much I blame of this on him, Dylan, to be honest with you, because off the air, and I've talked about this a couple times this week, Fresno State and South Alabama are a combined 5-1. That's your previous defensive and offensive coordinators from Indiana that have left in the last year. Not only are they 5-1, Fresno State is ranked 22nd in the country. They just beat UCLA. That's the University of California at Los Angeles. You know, the ones with blue and the yellow that plays out in the Rose Bowl. Yeah, that was Fresno State that beat their butts. That was Fresno State that took Oregon to the limit. Fresno State is not a Pac-12 school, but they're playing Pac-12 level football because Kalen DeBoer, I knew what Indiana was losing when he left. I was like, oh, man. And that's why I was adamant about Indiana needing to make the absolute best hire they could at offensive coordinator at the time. And I'm sorry, but they didn't. They had the chance. That job was red hot. Indiana was red hot. Man, I bet you every hot coordinator in the country wanted that job. Just because what I just talked about, Fresno State and South Alabama are 5-1 because these guys got head coaching jobs out of that. And they know if they can come to a Big Ten school like this that's hot and they want to continue to see it. And I think that was a huge mistake for Indiana. As a matter of fact, I'm about to pull this up. Someone sent this to me yesterday, and it's a chart that Punt John Punt, if you ever on Twitter, there's a Twitter character, Punt John Punt will put out some stuff and had a chart, here we go, about IU's decline on offense. And I should have forwarded this, and I'm going to forward this to John to have him put this up. But it is definitely shows you since the advent of Nick taking over, there has been a steep decline in offensive productivity. Now, there have been other things that go along with that, but I'm talking a steep decline, man. I'm sending it to you now, John, in email, but and it won't do you any good till you can see it, Dylan, but it goes back to 2019 and Indiana's success rate at quarterback rolling 179 plays. Back in 2019, you go from Ball State, it's 50% jumping around there, and then it jumps up to a high at Northwestern in 2019. And then right after that it says the start of 2020, Nick Sheridan takes over as offensive coordinator, and it's right around the 50% mark. And then it is a straight drop down to around 37, back up to around 45, and back down to 37, and then a continued fall down. There you go.
Yeah.
Now there's other things that go along with this. Michael Penix for one, but that you don't have that excuse now because you have Michael Penix. And I'm getting the knee injury. Okay, at this point, it can't be that. You're either comfortable with the knee or you're not. It's not the first time he's done it.
Right.
It's not the first time he's had a season-ending injury. He's had 3 of them. There's something much different going on here on the offense, and it's not just Michael Penix. And you have to look someplace, and I'm not trying to point fingers, but this chart kind of lays out a bit of information that you can't ignore.
Yeah, it's possible that people were blinded kind of last year by how good the offense looked against Ohio State. What it might have just been that Ohio State's defense wasn't particularly good last year. And so, I mean, that was the best game Penix played. And then the next game was the Maryland game where he got hurt, but he wasn't good in that Maryland game. And they won, and they were winning the entire game. But when he got hurt, he was 4 for 15 in that game. It was very odd that even before, if Penix had not gotten hurt in that game against Maryland, there still would have been significant questions after the game about what was going on with him, because he did not look comfortable that entire game. It looked good in the
Penn State game, but they hadn't won that game. Penn State game last year. He didn't look good in that game either.
Right. He looked good against Michigan. He looked good against Ohio State. And those were enough, I think, to kind of make it look like the offense hasn't taken a drop off from 2019 when DeBoer was the coordinator. But yeah, this year it obviously has not been the same. And there were the warning signs last year, but I think it was just the highs were so high that it was hard to look at the warning signs and be like, well, this is going to be a continuing issue because the highs were just so high.
Yeah, and Pete asked Sheridan, or makes a comment, Sheridan has to be on the hot seat, right? I hate to say it, but no win tomorrow or bad offense again, does he get fired? Absolutely not.
That's not a decision that Tom Allen makes. He's not going to fire a coordinator midseason. I would be shocked
absolutely not. And
if that happened,
I would be shocked if he fired him at the conclusion of the season, no matter what happens. Bowl game or no bowl game, I would be shocked. I think that he is, unless they had a complete collapse, and they bring Tuttle in, and there's more problems because there's problems with the offensive line. It's not just one. The offensive line has not been great, which I don't understand. They're a veteran group.
They have had some injuries on the offensive line, and that's made it, I believe, difficult for them to gel somewhat because they've tried out a different starting offensive lineup all 3 games so far, and they seem to have the line they were hoping to at the beginning of the season, but it took a few games for everyone to get healthy. And I think maybe that has made it more difficult for them to kind of come together as a unit, because even if you have 5 players on the offensive line who are individually solid, and and if they've never played before, they're going to struggle because offensive line is such a chemistry position. It requires so much cooperation. And even if you have individual talent up there, it's going to take a while to come together.
Yeah, if you listen to this show, you know that I am going to say what I think, and I'm not intending to be negative, knock people down. I'm not here to be Indiana's cheerleader. That's not what I'm here for. If you want that, like I said, you just go to the Facebook pages for that stuff. But and I'm not here to bash on Nick Sheridan, but I thought it was a bad hire at the time, 2 years ago. I am further convinced it was a bad hire now. I said it on the air 2 years ago when it happened. You have to take your shot when you get it. And Indiana doesn't do that. They have had opportunities in bowl games to win, and they don't take their shot. They play not to lose. Hiring Nick Sheridan was playing not to lose. Oh, I don't want to lose him. That's bull crap. Go hire somebody else. There's a million of them. You've got to stop. Indiana football is playing too conservative, not in play calling, just in general. Take the chances, man. You're in the Big Ten East. You are on the outside looking in, and you're going to have to throw rocks to break some windows. And the coming in quiet only works for a while. Did you see Michigan State? They got knocked down. They said, to hell with that. We're coming back. Well, they're back strong this year. Indiana's got to take the shots when you get a shot to do it, and that otherwise Indiana football will remain Indiana football. You have got to do something different. I don't care if it's running a different quarterback. I don't care. Take a chance. When you're repeating the same thing over and getting the same result, definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Try it. That's no loss.
Right. And I do think the thing with Penix is we've seen him be so good in the past. And we've seen him make good plays this year too. There have been mistakes and bad plays, but there have also been some very, very good plays because the athleticism and the arm strength is still there with Penix.
But the bad is so much worse than the good.
It is right now.
And so much more catastrophic.
Yeah. And that's the thing is I think it's a genuinely difficult decision for Tom Allen is because we don't know how good Jack Tuttle really is, right? No. He looks good right now because he's the backup quarterback, right? But if you bench Penix and
he's
you
undefeated
Tuttle out there, yeah. But this year, we saw him 2 games last year, and he was nothing special, right? He was fine. They won that game against Wisconsin because of defense. They lost the game against Ole Miss because Tuttle was limited, right?
I thought he was pretty tough in the Wisconsin game. I thought he took a lot of shots. But I think that part of this is game planning. That Ole Miss bowl game was the worst offensive game plan in the history of offensive game plans.
Yeah.
Who put that plan together?
Yeah. That is absolutely a fair question to ask.
With a month to plan for it, no less.
I do wonder how much of that game plan was a result of them realizing the Tuttle is slightly limited and not being able to do some of the things that Penix can do. And so I think that Penix just gives them a higher ceiling right now. And maybe against a team like Western Kentucky, maybe you want a higher floor, but Western Kentucky has the top passing offense in the country. So maybe you think you want to score some points. I don't know. I don't know what I would do if I was Tom Allen. This is one of the more difficult decisions at quarterback I can remember a team having, because you have a guy who's been a star in the past, but is not currently playing well. And you have a guy behind him who remains an unknown commodity. And so it's one of those things where you kind of got to feel it as a head coach.
I agree with you. So I said a minute ago, I don't know how much of this is actually Michael Penix Jr.'s fault. Now, when he misses passes, he misses them bad. But Ty Freifogel has not made catches. He has had catches off of his hands that would have been big catches that he should have made. The offensive line has not been good. Shimitori just pointed it out. The offensive line has not been good. And yeah, they may have some injuries, but I don't care. Not this year. You have 19 returning 16 returning starters on this team, 9 of which were on offense. I just don't think that that's an excuse this far in. And Nick Sheridan, between Nick Sheridan, the offensive line, and Ty Freifogel, none of those 3 have performed to the level they need to perform. I don't think the game planning has been no bubble screens, no flare passes, no jet sweeps. It's a very vanilla, predictable offense. Either run the ball, either hand the ball to Stephen Carr off tackle, or Penix drops back to try to throw a pass. That's basically the offense.
And I do think I will say that running the ball to Stephen Carr might not be the worst thing to do this weekend, just because Western Kentucky has really struggled to stop the run this year. Not only against Army, who's a triple option team, that's a different scenario. Western Kentucky gave up 200 yards rushing to Tennessee Martin. So I would say a vanilla offense might not be the worst idea this week.
He keeps the ball out of their hands too.
Right. But going forward, I absolutely agree with you. Especially they have that murderer's row stretch. You got Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State, all back to back. They're going to need to do something different.
Hey, let's take a quick break. Bring in Zach Osterman from the Indy Star next. We'll be jumping off here. Hey, don't forget our friends at Aurora Sleep Clinic. If you or someone you know, it's time you spend time with, snoring or having sleep apnea, you need to see our friends at Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Dr. Steve Green, former IU player, and Brian Evans, waiting to help you get the good night's sleep you're not getting. It's a very, very simple, compact device. I can personally say it works. It's like a couple of whitening trays. Visit or call Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic at 4745 Statesman Drive in Indianapolis, or just visit aurorasleep.com. It will help you, I guarantee it. We're back with more Zach Osterman right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. Man, how about them apples?
It's early.
Yeah. You know, those Americans, they just get your hopes up so they can dash them. We'll beat your ass on Sunday.
I mean, what was it? Was it 2018, 2016 when Europe had that massive comeback from down 10-4?
Did I go? I'm trying to think if I went to the Brighter Cup when it was at Valhalla. Patrick Cantley, Daniel Berger. See, now this is funny. We've gotten to the point to where things are happening. I don't know all the players on here. I don't know. I'm not really familiar with Daniel Berger. That's the only one.
You might not be able to see him, but Zach's in here right now.
Hey, Zach, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sorry, my camera's acting weird again. I've kind of tried to jump in here a couple times, and I think I'm just going to have to punt the camera today. I'm sorry.
No worries. We'll call you the beard.
That's right. It needs a trim, to be honest. Make it.
I had to give myself a haircut the other day. That didn't work out well. Yeah, I'm like, I haven't had one for so long. I'm like, all right, I can't take it. So I got the electric thing out, and I got a little closer on one side than I did the other. I'm like, damn it. So you just drag some hair forward, and hopefully you hide it.
Outside of camera trouble, how are you doing, Zach?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Thomas and Spieth, 2 up on Rahm and Garcia. Damn, U.S. is doing good, man. Cantley and Shoffley are 5 up. Koepka and Berger are 1 up. Johnson and Murray Kyle.
Good Lord.
They're kicking Roy McIlroy and Pooter's ass.
Oh.
All right, here we go.
Multiple locations and something for everyone. Sam's Restaurant in Fishers has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Yogi's Bar and Grill. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Friday. Man, we've got it loaded up now. Dylan Sinn with me from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, and Zach Osterman joins from the Indy Star. Zach, how are you, sir?
How are we doing? Thanks for having me.
You bet, as always. We should start calling you the Beard. I've been on this Ted Lasso kick. I know I'm late to the party with the Ted Lasso thing, but I didn't see it until it was like a whole season had gone by, and just started. The thing I hate about those kind of shows, though, is when they come out, you watch them all, and now you're done for a freaking year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I guess they broke it up this time. Last time, I think they dumped the whole season at once. So,
they did. So, is there more to come for season 2?
Oh yeah, we're in the middle of season 2 right now.
Oh, perfect. I thought I'd already been through them all. Great.
No, yeah, we're in the middle of season 2. I think there's at least maybe 2 more to be released in season 2.
Zach probably gets tired. He's along with Mike DeCourcy, but Zach's a big soccer fan, so he's the only other person that comes on and generally talks soccer with, which and it's more about Ted Lasso. But and I saw that Brett Goldstein, my favorite character in the world, he won the Emmy this week for his role on that show.
Yeah, it's Roy Kent. I think probably the most popular of all the characters.
Oh, how could he not be? Freaking hilarious. What's happening with you, man? How's the week been? It's been not a long one, not a short one, just a normal week, I guess, really.
Yeah, it's been nice. These temperatures cooling off, and been doing a lot of work in my basement, and not that anybody cares much about that, but yeah, it's been nice and quiet, really.
It has been unusually with the season going on. Non-conference game this week for Indiana in football as they travel down to Western Kentucky in a game that should not be an issue, could be an issue, but I don't expect there to be. And I'll be honest with Zach, before you came on, we were talking about, I don't know how much of the offensive woes are Michael Penix and how much of it is Michael Penix, Ty Freifogel, the offensive line, and Nick Sheridan all combined, because none of them have performed very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sheridan, kind of tried to say that this week, that, and that's sort of a coach's responsibility to kind of stand in front of criticism of any individual player. But I think he tried to say it's not just on Mike, it's on all of us. Certainly, if you watch portions of Saturday's game back, the Cincinnati game, I think there's probably a lot that would back that up. There were some drops. I think Indiana's offensive line still could stand to improve pretty significantly, pretty substantially in some areas. And, I've said this all week, and I'm not picking on Tim Baldwin specifically, but for all everybody wants to ask about Michael Penix's interceptions, probably the most costly turnover in that game is the Baldwin fumble. So it's more just, again, it's not picking on Tim Baldwin. It's more just a reminder that as a whole, that offense is a long way away from where it needs to be. And that's on Penix, it's on Sheridan, it's on everybody. I did think there were some promising moments against Cincinnati, certainly more so than Iowa. But at the same time, I mean, there are no more, soft pedal games on the schedule. Even Western Kentucky on the road is going to be a tricky one. So Indiana's really got to kind of hunker down here.
Yeah, and the thing I'm asked as the question is, why are they having the offensive line woes? This is a veteran group that came back, and there was a lot their expectations were high. That's part of the reason. The core of this offense was coming back. Questions around Michael Penix, of course, but the one good thing was, he should have good protection. And that just hasn't been the case. The running game, while Stephen Carr has done okay, he's at the end of the games, usually he's back down to averaging about 2.5 yards a carry. So the running game is not finishing the games. It's starting out, but and I don't really understand what has happened on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite frankly, it was an offensive line that I think you're right that we expected it to be better, but it is worth remembering it wasn't always consistently great last year. And, some of Indiana's ability to produce explosive plays probably masked some shortcomings along that line. And I'm just not sure that we've seen quite the amount of progress that it seemed like the staff had believed. Tom Allen has said in the last 2 or 3 weeks that he expected that line to be better. He genuinely, watching it through the offseason, expected that line would perform better. I just don't think we've maybe seen enough of that yet, frankly. And until we do, I don't want to say that nothing's fixable, but until we do, there is Kevin Wilson used to say that your offense was what you could block. And it was in the context of us asking him, either maybe they were playing Navy the first time he said it and he was talking about the option, or I think it was just in the context of us asking him about his offense. It was in the early days of his tenure, and we were still kind of getting a sense for, what it was supposed to look like. And that first year they struggled so much that you sort of understood that wasn't what it was going to look like forever. And I think we were sort of trying to get him to put some sort of terminology on it. Is it spread? Is it tempo? What is it? And he said, I think it was Randy Walker is where he took that phrase from. He said, your offense is what you can block. You can call it whatever you want, but if you can't block it, you can't run it. And right now, quite frankly, Indiana is struggling to block some of the fundamental stuff that in the run and the pass that Nick Sheridan's trying to do offensively. And that's, again, that's on kind of everyone, but it probably starts with coaches. It starts with, Darren Hiller. It starts with Nick Sheridan, because it's going to be Hiller's job and Sheridan's job to figure out where where that offensive line is most capable. In times like this, and this is kind of a rambling story, forgive me, but I'm reminded of a story I heard once about coaching from an ex-soccer coach who was giving a seminar to some people on coaching, and he took a tennis ball and he threw it at one of them, and the guy caught it, and he said, how hard was that? And he said, well, it's not hard to catch it, like it's a tennis ball. And he said, well, what if I'd thrown 2 tennis balls at you? And he said, well, I have to focus, but I could probably catch 2 tennis balls. He said, well, what if I'd thrown 4 or 5 or 6 or 7? And the guy acknowledged he'd probably drop some if that happened. And he said, that's coaching. Coaching isn't knowing how many tennis balls I can throw at you. It's knowing how many tennis balls you can catch. And the point being, it's knowing what your players are capable of, not what you're capable of as a coach. You're always going to know more about the game than they are. You're always going to have a more advanced understanding of a lot of this because you have more time and experience, and you've spent more of your life kind of dedicated to these things. But it's knowing what your players are capable of and not asking them to do things that they can't. And I think that when you talk about kind of where Indiana's coaching staff is right now, I know there are people that are looking at Nick Sheridan, for example, and saying, oh, he needs better play calling, this and that. I don't think that's the problem. I think what he needs right now, and I think it's what he's looking for. And again, I think there were moments when it felt like he'd found some of it against Cincinnati. But I think possibly a little bit of what he's looking for is trying to figure out how many tennis balls some of these players can catch. And they're, and understanding basically what are the things that these guys can do that put us in the best situations. And people will say, well, it's his second year as offensive coordinator. Not a lot changed from last season. Why is this so hard. But I think in fairness to him and in fairness to the staff, it really isn't the second season. They were working with such a pared down playbook a year ago that I don't think you can look at 2020 and say that was reflective of what, this roster is capable of, or what Indiana's coaching staff could reasonably hope to achieve by asking its roster to do. So this is kind of a year one in a way for Nick Sheridan as offensive coordinator, but obviously I think everyone understands it's got to get figured out fairly quickly here.
Well,
and I agree.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on that quickly. Is there anything? Obviously, not to go into too many specifics, but is there anything that you're looking or hoping to see tomorrow that kind of would say this is moving in the right direction? Is there anything they could do tomorrow that would kind of point to something happening in a positive direction going forward?
Well, I think number one, running the ball. I mean, in Western Kentucky's rush defense numbers are awful. It's hard to know, though. They've played 2 games. One of them's against Army. That can throw your rushing numbers, kind of for a loop early in a season. We saw Indiana actually have some success running the football early against Cincinnati, first quarter and a half, maybe the first 2 quarters, and then it felt like they just sort of stopped getting that push and creating those seams. If Indiana can do that more consistently, I mean, again, I don't want to say it's only Western Kentucky. They're a good group of 5 program, but this is also maybe your last chance to kind of fine tune some of that, because everything from then on will be Big Ten games. I think the other thing is just whatever it takes, whether it's rushing the football, whether it's the short passing game, whatever it takes, getting that passing game into a rhythm of some kind, because Indiana's way home this year if it's going to have a successful season. And we can have a separate debate about what a successful season is. I mean, Todd Brommelkamp is an old friend of mine who is a radio host in Cedar Rapids. And in this week leading up to the Iowa game, he direct messaged me. He said, "What do you really think of this Indiana team?" And I said, "I think they're a really good team that's going to wind up 7-5, because that happens sometimes. You get a really tough draw, you get a really tough schedule. So we can have a separate conversation about where expectations should be. Vegas thought they were somewhere between 7 and 8 wins, and Vegas is here purely to make money on the enterprise.
And they're rarely wrong.
Right? No, they if they were consistently
they would
wrong,
not be in business being able to.
But if Indiana is going to hit those expectations, the strength of this offense is almost certainly going to be its ability to throw the ball. And that's on Michael Penix foremost, but that's on his line to block. That's on his receivers. We saw too many drops on Saturday. I mean, drops that were the kinds of throws that aren't easy. When you're playing a top 10 team, you're not going to have dudes just wide open all over the field all the time. But they were Michael Penix putting the ball in spots where you'd say, the old cliche about only his receiver can catch it. And Michael Penix trusting experienced players, frankly, players like Miles Marshall and Ty Freifogel, to just sort of say, I'm going to give you a tough but catchable ball in a tough but winnable game, and trust you'll make a play. And they couldn't. And that's got to happen too. And so I think whatever it takes to get that timing and that rhythm in that offense, if it's the run game, fine. If it's the screen game, which I thought we saw a little bit more of against Cincinnati, that's great. If it's getting Penix on the move more often, I think that moving quarterbacks around, like literally asking quarterbacks to be on the move when they are throwing, rolling them out, sprint rollouts, backside rollouts, things like that, is actually a really underappreciated part of offensive scheme. Like, go look at the numbers for a player like Aaron Rodgers and how good he is throwing on the run and how productive the offense can be when he's throwing on the run. If it's stuff like that maybe gets Penix moving and gets him out of the pocket or shifts the pocket a little more, fine. But this offense has to find things that it has to find places within its scheme where it can just say, this is where we go for some rhythm, for some confidence, for 5 yards when we just need 5 yards. We can go do this. And I thought there was more of that against Cincinnati, certainly than Iowa, but still obviously not enough. And this is maybe the last time, even against a good team, where you're going to have the opportunity to tinker and experiment enough to find that.
Yeah, the thing that the Cincinnati game that was mind-boggling or mind-crushing for fans is as badly as they played, and forget about the Michael McFadden thing, they could have easily won that game by 17 points minus the self-inflicted mistakes that they committed in that game. Whether you mentioned the Tim Baldwin fumble, the pick at midfield close to halftime, the getting the roughing the passer after they'd stopped them on a defensive stop. There are just so many things that like 5 easy things you could easily just pick out that completely changed that game. It had nothing to do with Micah McFadden. And then there's that part of it. But so they could have easily won that game and made themselves look, taking so much heat off of themselves. And that's the disappointing thing, is you're not going to have many of those opportunities. As we look through the Big Ten, so many of these teams have improved. Michigan State, much better than they were a year ago. Maryland is better. Even Rutgers is better. You've got a Minnesota team that's going to come in that has been playing well. They've lost Muhammad Ibrahim, and then you have to finish the season on the road at Purdue. So it's going to be even more of a daunting schedule than at first I thought. I didn't realize how much better some of these Big Ten teams had gotten, and I didn't expect the fall off from Indiana.
No, I mean, it's really easy to say this stuff in hindsight, but like if Indiana wins that game by hook or by crook on Saturday, it's probably ranked right now.
Yeah, and we're not exactly.
And I think, really, I said this yesterday. I don't think that Indiana has somehow started, failed basically its expectations or proved that the last 2 years were some sort of false dawn. Like I think there's been a lot of Indiana fans saying, "Oh, we were just fooled into thinking this team was good." Like that's a ridiculous thing to say. They went to the Gator Bowl, the Outback Bowl, and back-to-back seasons. They were good, and they're still good. Now, maybe there are some ways in which they aren't as good as they were because they lost Jamar Johnson or because Michael Penix's injuries have really just started to get the better of them and whatever different things. But I think really more what Indiana's kind of been reminded of this season is that if your ambition is to do more, then look at your schedule and just think, how do we squeeze a bowl berth out of this? Whatever it takes. How do we squeeze a bowl berth out of this? Then it's harder. And, yes, Indiana could have had an easier schedule. They could have played, I don't know, they could have played Tommy Tuberville's Cincinnati, not Luke Fickell's Cincinnati. That's what they signed up to play, at least in theory, when the contract was signed. But and yes, they got handed a tough schedule, and somehow it's getting tougher. But that happens. And if you want to, if I'm not even saying if you want to compete for a Big Ten title, I'm saying if you want to be a serious Big Ten program, every once in a while you're going to wind up with a schedule like this. Talk to Iowa fans; they feel like this happens to them like every 4 years, where they end up playing, a good Iowa State team, somebody else big in the non-conference, and then 2 of the big 3 from the East. This is par for the course if your expectation is that you're not just going to write off every ranked team on your schedule preseason as a loss and then just say, okay, well, if we beat any of those teams, that's a huge bonus, but our focus is basically winning every other game. Then the reminder is that it's tougher. The margin for error is a lot slimmer. And you're right. First of all, if the Michael McFadden targeting penalty doesn't happen, and I thought it was targeting, and we can have a completely separate conversation about the rule, but I thought it was the right call. But if he's cleanly blocked on that play and Jaron Handy gets to the quarterback like he does, and it's just a third down incompletion and Indiana gets the ball back, there's a really good chance Indiana wins that game by 3 scores because they were owning Cincinnati at that point. Cincinnati had 1 first down. They crossed the 50 one time before that targeting penalty happened. And that wasn't like for a quarter. That was for nearly an entire half of football. And the offense wasn't great, but it was still playing well enough to be up 14-0. Arguably would have been able to put maybe 3 more points on the board. And then we're talking about a 17-point halftime lead. That is substantial. But in the same breath, even through all the other mistakes, if Indiana punches it in on that fourth quarter drive where they fumble the ball, they're up 31-30 with 7.5 minutes left. And it's a different conversation about a different game. And so the point is, even through those mistakes, like I think what actually made this, if I was an Indiana fan, and I'm not, but if I was, what would make this game more frustrating for me is how imminently winnable it was, even through a lot of those mistakes. And the degree to which Indiana kind of cut its own legs out from under. But if I'm Tom Allen, I'm looking at this game and I'm saying, forget Iowa. Iowa was it was a one-off. It was a total non sequitur. Like Iowa's no longer our concern. This game is what you can be. You had a top 10 team on the ropes at home. You didn't handle one big piece of adversity well enough. We can learn from that. We've done that before. You made too many mistakes. We can clean those up. We've done that before. And if you did that, you would have beaten and possibly beaten soundly a team that was in the Peach Bowl a year ago and has playoff ambitions right now. So if I'm Tom Allen, I'm saying this is how close we are. Everybody thinks the sky is falling on our season, but this is how close we are.
The only thing is, though, that it reminds me of the bowl losses. Both games, the Tennessee game, the Gator Bowl, absolutely, that they should have won, had in their control, and just they snatch victory out of snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. Same type of similar reasons of not just simply not doing things. Last year, poor game plan, whatever, but they're not winning games that they should easily win that would create a much better perception of Indiana football. You talk about this perception of Indiana football that a lot of people have, and this continues to perpetuate that, I think. And until they stop losing these kind of games, that's going to continue.
I think that's fair. I think that's perfectly fair. But the flip side is you kind of need the full context of this season. What if Indiana comes back, beats Michigan State and Ohio State at home, which that doesn't look like the most ridiculous thing in the world. Ohio State's not a great team right now, not what we thought they'd be. Let's say they win this weekend, lose to Penn State, and then come off the bye and beat Michigan State and Ohio State at home, and they go to Maryland 4-3, and they beat Maryland. Well, then we're not really saying, oh, same old Indiana. What we're saying is just that Indiana needed a little bit of time to settle into this season, and they weren't given it by a difficult first month, which is exactly what we all thought. Again, I understand that what part of what's been jarring for people has been the method of defeat. But if Indiana had lost 17-6 at Iowa and then played the game they played Saturday against, if you just wiped all the points off turnovers off the board at Iowa, and then they played roughly the same game against Cincinnati and lost that game, I think you'd still see a lot of the same frustration and fan reaction. And I would say what I've said all week, which is everyone acknowledged in the preseason this was possible. Everyone acknowledged in the preseason Indiana could play well through the first 5 weeks and still start 2-3. But you have to get through an entire season to understand the context of it. In 2014, Indiana went on the road and beat Missouri. It was a huge win. And then they lose Nate Studfeld and go 4-8. You have to get through the season to understand the context. And I don't think, listen, if we're sitting here and Indiana's 2-5 going into the Maryland game, then it's completely fair. And that's completely reasonable. That's completely possible. And then it's completely fair to say this season was a disappointment. But I think if you can't say sort of same old Indiana. First of all, I think Indiana, with the success of the last 4 bowl games in 6 years, I think they've earned the right to say it's not the same old Indiana right now. Even if they're losing the bowl games, they're getting there. There was a stretch of 1 bowl game in 15 years. 4-6 is not the same old Indiana. Second of all, you have to see where Indiana gets to over the course of the entire season before you can say, well, this is just a reversion back to the mean and this and this and this. It has to endure beyond 1 or 2 or 3 weeks.
Dustin?
Yeah, I guess that's the main thing is how likely do you think that is right now? Do you feel like what is the vibe around the team right now that they keep saying they still have confidence in themselves. Is that something that you think that they still have?
I mean, I obviously I don't. I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, when you're not in practices and things, I think there have been, some concerning things. Hearing Nick Sheridan, for example, say that turnovers have been an issue since the preseason. That's probably a concern. That they've been working on it, and yet there's still, I think it's 7 turnovers in 3 games, or maybe 8 turnovers in 3 games. That's not ideal. On the other hand, the defense has played really, really well, and it hasn't always shown up on the scoreboard for a variety of reasons, but that defense has shown the capacity to win games, frankly, and I think potentially to win games against Power 5 opposition, Big Ten opposition. If the offense can take 1 or 2 more steps, I think it almost feels right now like that offense is at 75% of capacity basically everywhere. And the problem with that is that if there's nothing that's just operating like a top line efficiency, then you don't have anything that you feel like you can rely on. But if it can get that 75% to 100% in a couple areas, I think its fortunes could change fairly quickly as well. I don't know if it's ever going to be the best offense in the Big Ten, but I think it can be a lot more serviceable than it is right now and a lot more useful and functional than it is right now. I certainly don't think the season's over by any means. I think obviously this weekend is a must win. That should go without saying. But I just think that you've got to get through. We all said in the off season and the preseason, these first 5 games were going to be rugged and difficult, and it was totally reasonable to see Indiana come through these 5 games 2 and 3 like that. That was everyone kind of agreed on that. And I get that in the moment it's tough for fans to swallow losses. Trust me, I understand. But I think we've got to see where Indiana is kind of the other side of October and to really know for sure, because that's when things are going to get a little bit more manageable. Things are probably not going to feel quite so hectic, quite so out of control. And like I said, if Indiana's 2 and 5 going into that Maryland game October 30th, then fair enough. But if they're 4 and 3 and, back-to-back wins against Maryland and Rutgers would get them to 7 and 3, then I think that's a pretty different conversation.
Zach, one more thing, and I'll let you go because I know you got to get going. But if that is the case, because everybody during the games, everybody starts lighting up Twitter about bringing Tuttle in. And I don't know how good of a quarterback Tuttle really is. Obviously, if he was that much better, he would probably be in there. But what do you think that it will take for there to be a change either in game or obviously if they lose this game, if they play badly? But what would it take for that to happen, for there to be a change at quarterback? And I'm not saying that there should be or suggestion that there's going to be, but it's just one of the things that people ask about if the offense is not improve, even though we've listed a line of things that it's not just a quarterback that's responsible here.
I think turnovers would be the big thing. If Michael Penix can't, again, there's not another Idaho on the schedule, even Western Kentucky. I know they're not a Power 5 team, but they're, consistently one of the most competitive and successful group of 5 programs in the country. They're a program that I think, first of all, quietly, they've been better on defense the last couple of years than people think. Second of all, I think they have a really established identity, and I think that's part of what makes them tough. That what they are right now, at least in a very sort of broad brush sense. I understand schemes are different, coaches are different, et cetera. But, kind of their identity right now of just sort of throwing the ball all over the field and all that under Tyson Helton, it is very sort of reminiscent of what they were under, Willie Taggart, what they were under Jeff Brom. They have an identity that sort of the program believes in and buys into, and that's part of what makes them difficult in games like this. And then you start into Big Ten play after this. If Michael Penix, let's say after 2 more games, is still struggling to keep hold of the football, struggling to confidently steer the offense, that's when I think you need to have that conversation. but I don't. I think it is not a decision you can rush. That's the worst thing you can do with that sort of decision.
Yeah, it's you can't be topsy turvy. I know people say, "Well, what would Nick Saban do?" Well, Nick Saban's got an NFL quarterback stable. His last 3 or 4 quarterbacks are currently playing in the NFL, so big difference there. But Zach's got a lot of great stuff out right now in the Indy Star. Piece on DJ Matthews, finding fatherhood, putting fatherhood in perspective. That's a great piece there. Also, 5 things to watch this weekend for the WKU game. And you and Chronic, was it you and Chronic that cut another one? Is he on the mend? And was that you and?
No, it was me. It was me and Chronic. That DJ Matthews story was Dustin, though. Credit where credit's due on that one.
Okay, I didn't see the. I haven't pulled it back up. So, yeah, Dustin, DePerrick from the Herald, not Herald. When are they going to combine those? Just combine them. Just stop pretending. I'm just kidding. Stuff out of your mind. Other than that, you're heading to the game in Bowling Green, I assume, tomorrow.
Yep.
Do you have a spot in the press box, I'm sure? You have one of the few spots in the press box?
I think Dustin will be in the press box, and I'll be out in the overhang or whatever it is.
The auxiliary. Yeah. Western does not have room in the press box for the media. So it's kind of like, it's funny. It's kind of like going to a college baseball game or something during the College World Series. A little unusual, but man, I can't thank you enough, Zach. How's the little man doing?
Oh, he's fine. He's fine. He's just, kicking along, quite literally sometimes.
Need to get him a Roy Kent jersey.
It's not always a dissimilar attitude on life.
Well, brother, I appreciate you very much. Make sure that you guys go check out Zach's. Of course, you probably already do, but at the Indy Star. Appreciate it. Zach, thank you, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, as always.
You bet. Zach Osterman from the Indianapolis Star joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Got Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking...
Be right back.
Hey, if you want me to cut an in and out and to split those segments for you, I can do that.
It's good for now. We can just we're just going to skip over a break again.
But when the thing is, when it's not always planned, you don't know how it goes, and then I don't know that they can. If you give someone an opportunity to get out, sometimes they do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it, but I don't know.
Was there 2 different things? There wasn't 2 different things we spoke about, was it? It was all about the IU offense.
Yeah, it was all about
much
the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all good. We'll skip over a break today. It's all good.
You didn't. Are you going to be at IU Media Day next week, Jim?
Brother, let's see. Saturday is the Bowling Green and Western Kentucky game. Monday, I have to do the show from the football complex because as soon as we finish, the press conferences start like that. So to be there, I have to do the show there in order to be there. So then that goes for a couple of hours. And then Monday, IU Basketball Media Day is that afternoon. And then I have a show that night to do. Hey, we need to start promoting that, John. Monday afternoon quarterback with Mitchell Page.
Okay, yeah, with Mitchell Page. Got it. Y'all should probably talk about the Ryder Cup. Y'all mentioned you were going to talk about it earlier and you didn't.
Well, that's what this last segment's for, baby.
I know. That's why I'm reminding you because you have one more segment.
Monday. Should I call it the Monday afternoon or Monday evening quarterback? What?
Well, do you know what time it'll be at?
It'll be, well, it doesn't really matter because people, when they watch it, it doesn't matter. So
I've already been calling it the Monday afternoon quarterback. I know it's different now because Mitchell Page will be a part of it, but if you want to keep the name consistent, then
how about Monday quarterback?
It's just call it whatever you want. It's fine.
He's in such a great mood today.
Well, I was after the show. Yeah, it's fine.
You was after the show?
I cut out. I said I was for the first half of the show. It's just been an annoying as hell week. I know you've been a part of it too. I'm not saying it's just me, but I'm very pissed off for whatever reason right now. Let's go ahead and bring this back in so I stop pissing people off as well.
Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Friday. Dylan Sinn with me from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. If you're down in the Clarksville area, southern Indiana, make sure you stop in, man. They make their food fresh. You talk about a busy week next week, Dylan. You brought it up. We've got the football games and all that this weekend, of course, in NFL on Sunday. Monday, I have to do the show from the football complex in order to be at the complex because as soon as I finish, the pressers start. There was an hour difference last year, and so I could just no rush. Well, now that changes everything, and so that's miserable enough. But then after we do that this week, the IU basketball media day is on Monday as well. So we have that coming to you. And then Monday evening, I've been doing the Monday afternoon quarterback, but we're going to move that to a little later in the day now, the Monday quarterback, and Mitchell Page is going to start joining me. So we're going to move that to like 5 or 6 o'clock. Thank goodness, because that would have sucked with this week, but
Monday evening quarterback.
Monday evening quarterback, yeah. But yeah, what a long day Monday is going to be. But a lot of great stuff for you guys coming up. Tons of new information heading our way. Like I said, the new show with Mitchell Page, but IU basketball media. Then Big Ten media day is next Thursday and Friday.
Yes.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Not much going on. Oh, I forgot. In between, Hoosier Hysteria.
Yeah.
Gee
whiz. And the one thing you didn't mention in there is that Big Ten Media Day this year is the new and improved Big Ten Media Day for basketball because they have the men's and women's teams there. So the IU women's team will be at Big Ten Media Day along with the men's team. We'll get to talk to Terry Moore and all of her players as well. So there is a lot going on next week. It is going to be hectic from start to finish, especially, as you said, with Hoosier Hysteria Saturday, IU at Penn State. All that going on in the background, too.
Not to offend anyone, but adding the women doesn't make me happy, not because it's adding the women. It just doubled the length of the day, man. I'm like, oh, my God. You just doubled everything. That doubles the amount of people. And I'm like going, gee whiz, oh, my God. It's already a train wreck nightmare, running around up there, doing a show from up there. And so now I'm like, oh, great. So good for them. Surprised it took them this long in this day and age. But yeah, I mean, I'm not I'll be honest with you. I'm not looking forward to that only because of that reason. Yeah. That's like you saying, we're going to add the AAC conference along with that. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not looking forward to adding another. That's adding 14 more teams.
Yeah. And they're spreading it out over 2 days. So they're having the IU will only be on Friday. I believe they have the men's and women's on the same day, which helps in terms of that. But as you said, it does double the length of what you have to do, especially, I'm sure.
Well, you as well. I mean, everything. I mean, that's twice as many people you have to run around to chase to
that is true.
Get a quote from, get an interview, just set up an interview with, whatever, because those are times that you get things that you're not going to get during the season very often or the opportunity. So it's a very important time, these media days, and you use them for that reason. But yeah, it makes it, I'm not going to lie, it makes it a lot more difficult, especially geez, the football media days. Thank God that women don't play football because I ran around. I didn't have my stepdaughter on, but I guarantee you I got all the steps I could get in at Big Ten football media days because it's such a gigantic space of area. You just gotta, if you just go to the restroom, you're going to get your 2,000 steps in right there. But yeah, Big Ten Media Day is coming up. And now, is IU Media Day doing the same thing? Are they doubling up? I don't think they are they?
I don't believe so, no. Hoosier Hysteria is obviously doubled up, but that's always been the case. And it's just it's more exciting this year because the women's team is coming off the best season in program history and they have everyone back. So that should be really fun.
Let's see. Forrest says, "What's up, John?" Tim says, "Take a chill pill." Oh, there you go. See, it's not just me. A little off. If you're off air conversation, John gotten excited today. We're calming him down. Somebody should tell him it's Friday. TGIF, baby. TGIF. Okay, Wisconsin and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Wisconsin's whiskey is a 6.5 underdog, I think. I need to pull these games up.
I'm
going with Notre Dame.
Favorite.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
In Chicago, but that's going to be a very, well, I shouldn't say that. That should be equally split. I mean, you got a ton of Notre Dame fans in Chicago, but Wisconsin is so close. I mean, it's 2 hours, baby? That's a suburb of Chicago.
It's about equidistant between South Bend, South Bend and Madison. South Bend's a little bit closer.
But you have many Notre Dame fans in Chicago, I think.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And what I read was that it seems like from the tickets that have been sold, at least as of the other day, I think it's going to be a 55-45 split in favor of Notre Dame. So it'll be a pro Notre Dame crowd, but not completely. Almost like a bowl game. Kind of that kind of feel.
I'm trying to look over. All right. Number 22, Fresno State. Oh, my God. They're at home against UNLV, who's 0-3, but the Fighting Kalen DeBoers are a 30.5-point favorite. That's what Vegas thinks of Kalen DeBoer's offense.
I think that's also what they think of UNLV, who is not particularly good this year. But yes, it is. It is, as we've already said earlier in this show, it is nice to see Kalen DeBoer and to a lesser extent so far, Kane Womack really having some success early in their seasons.
I can't believe I happened to see that his quarterback came from Utah. Was Utah starting quarterback last year? If I read that correctly. Why in the hell would you transfer with the incumbent starting quarterback?
Washington, actually, I believe. Or was it Utah? Horner?
Utah. No, it was Utah because I was reading the story about Brewer, the guy who transferred in from Baylor and then ended up leaving. They mentioned that the incumbent starter had transferred to South Alabama. Why the hell would you transfer to South Alabama from Utah if you're the incumbent starter?
That's I mean, maybe they had someone coming in that they didn't think that they'd start next year or this year, or they just really didn't like the situation in Utah because I mean, South Alabama is obviously a very different kind of cultural situation than Utah. It's possible that maybe he's from there and he felt homesick. So sometimes that just happens.
How bad is Ohio, man? They're 0-3, but they are a 14.5-point underdog to Northwestern, who just sucks.
Yeah. I don't usually give gambling advice on here because I'm terrible. I don't put money on games. I'm bad at it when I do, but I don't know if Northwestern should be getting 14 points against anyone, let alone a MAC team. Like they're FCS.
They are 0-3.
They are. That's true. I guess that's Frank Solich might have read the tea leaves and gotten out of there at exactly the right time. But yeah, it's rough there in Evanston right now. I'll say that.
Battle of the Undefeateds, man. Villanova at number 6, Penn State. A little difference in quality there. Both 3-0, but there's no line that I don't see the line on this game at least. Penn State, obviously Indiana's opponent next week. So Penn State getting a little breather before Indiana comes in. Talked about
and they need it. They were banged up against Auburn last week. That was a physical, tough game that Penn State came out with the win on it, and that was actually that made me really high on Penn State for the rest of the season. I think they're the best team in the Big Ten right now, ahead of Ohio State. And
ahead of Iowa. I think Iowa's ahead of Ohio State.
Yeah, that's true too. And so, yeah, it was a really physical game, and they'll need that week to kind of rest up a little bit. But Villanova, those FCS teams can sneak up on you. Can't take them lightly.
Georgia has a bye week on the road at Vanderbilt. They're a 35-point favorite, so it's like having a bye week. LSU, and here's a game. LSU at Mississippi State. The Bulldogs both 2-1. LSU is a 2.5-point favorite, so Vegas thinks that one's going to be close. Texas Tech at Texas. The Longhorns are a 9-point favorite, even though Texas Tech is 3-0. Texas 2-1.
Texas Tech hasn't really. If you look at their schedule, Texas Tech has played no one this year. I think that they set the schedule up so they would have a chance at making it to a bowl game this year as they try to rebuild their program. Yeah, they've the competition has not exactly been terrific for Texas Tech.
Here's one you might want to bet on. Coastal Carolina, number 17. They're a 36-point favorite over Massachusetts, but Carolina's 3-0. Massachusetts is 0-3. I still hate giving up those kind of points.
The smart betting man would tell you that you stay away from a line that big one way or the other, just because there's so much variance that can happen. There's always the possibility that you're up by 45 and the other team gets a backdoor cover in some way. So that would be the smart money is to stay away from those unless you have a lot of cash to kick around and you just want to have fun.
Let's see. Did Army just start using the name Army West Point? Because that's how it's written out on this. I'm looking at Yahoo's sports sheet right now, but it's written out as Army West Point Black Knights.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know if they did a stylistic change on that or something. Maybe the AP did a stylistic change on that, and Yahoo follows the AP style guide or something like that, or Yahoo has its own style guide. But it's possible that they've gone through a branding transition here.
Oh, and now here's a game. I don't know that the game will be great. It was 4 years ago. It was awesome. Louisville at Florida State. 2-1 Louisville at 0-3 Florida State, who took Notre Dame to the bell. But Louisville is a 1.5-point favorite at Florida State.
Yeah, I think Louisville wins that game. I think Florida State has pretty much completely checked out at this point. Louisville is actually not bad. If you watched them last week against UCF,
they played well last week.
It was a fantastic game, first of all, and they did win that game on one of the craziest endings I've ever seen, where Louisville was driving down for a game-winning field goal. They threw an interception, so UCF had a chance to get the game-winning field goal, and then UCF threw a pick six, and Louisville won in the last 30 seconds. One of the craziest endings to a game I've ever seen, but Louisville seems to be not bad. But what does that say about Ole Miss, who beat Louisville by 5 touchdowns in week 1? Ole Miss might be the real deal.
Well, first of all, it's Lane Kiffin. So, first week you can get away with some stuff, but it's Lane Kiffin. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Maryland, here's a game I would bet. Maryland is only a 14.5-point favorite, 3-0 over Kent State. They're at home. Kent State is 1-2. I think Maryland's playing it well. Tagliavola is really playing well. They're a team to look out for. Not that I think that they're going to jump into the top 4 of the Big Ten East or anything, but they're not a bottom feeder right now.
No, they're not. They did struggle somewhat last week against Illinois, which I was a little bit surprised about. But Illinois might just be better than we think. Which actually I'm kind of leaning toward that hypothesis, because I think their win over Nebraska in week 1 was more about Illinois being somewhat better than people think than Nebraska actually being bad. But yeah, Maryland has Talia Tagovailoa has actually been by some measures the best quarterback in the Big Ten this year. It is a weak year for the Big Ten, to be clear, in terms of quarterbacks. but he's been very good. They have really good receivers. The defense leaves something to be desired still. But they have a chance to be 4-0, which would be a seismic shift for that program as they tried to build here under Mike Loxley.
Let's see. Michigan at home to Rutgers. Ooh, how about a battle of undefeated Big Ten teams? Michigan at home, number 9. They're ranked number 19 now. The Michigan fans have to be feeling a little bit better about themselves right now. They've not had a true test yet. They played some patsies and scored a lot of points. Rutgers is probably better than those teams that they played, so this will be a little bit, we can get a little bit of an indication, but it's in the big house, and so that's going to be a tough row to hoe. Michigan is a 20.5-point favorite at home, so you're looking at a 3-point difference between, I'm thinking, the 3rd/4th team in the Big Ten East over the 7th team in the Big Ten East is a 3-touchdown difference.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. I told you I don't like making gambling predictions. You talk about Michigan fans feeling a little bit better about themselves. I am a Michigan fan. I have been my entire life, for those who don't know. And I do feel somewhat better about myself, and I would still guess that Rutgers covers this line and covers it fairly easily. I think that is going to be a close game. I think Rutgers is better than people think, and I don't think Michigan is as good as they've shown in the first three weeks. I think Rutgers keeps that game close.
Really?
Yep.
At Michigan.
Yep. I think Rutgers there is a competence to Rutgers this season that they did not have under their past coaches, and I think that they're finally getting some talent in there. I think Michigan gives up at least one big play to Bo Melton, and I think the game ends up being close.
All right, here's the game of the big O uglies. Illinois at Purdue. I just can't think of an uglier game. And I'm not trying to be nasty, but I'm not saying I'm not a fan, so I'm not saying this as a fan, but you think of Purdue and it's all blah, and Illinois has been blah. This just seems blah, and this seems like a blah of a game. It's at in West Lafayette, and Purdue is an 11-point favorite. They should easily win that game. They need to win that game. They need to show some improvement on offense. But you just mentioned Illinois playing better, but their only win is against a crappy Nebraska team.
Right.
And they've lost 3 straight after that.
They did. They took. I don't think Nebraska is as crappy as people think. First of all, and they did take Maryland to the wire last week. The problem for
played
Purdue,
Oklahoma well.
They did. Yeah. The problem for Purdue is that we don't know whether David Bell is going to play. He's been in concussion protocol the whole week. After that, he took that big hit against Notre Dame last week. Jeff Brom talked about getting more creative this week and trying some new things. They're still trying to figure out their quarterback situation. Jack Plummer's the starter, but he got pulled in the fourth quarter last week. We talk about quarterback situations. Jeff Brom pulled Jack Plummer in the fourth quarter last week after he had not played particularly poorly against Notre Dame. So it's interesting how much quicker he is on the trigger than Tom Allen, although they do have confidence in Aiden O'Connell, who has started there before. So it's going to be interesting to see what that Purdue offense is, because they could be down their 2 best wide receivers and their top running back against Illinois.
And if that's the case, I don't want to say that gives Illinois a fighting chance, but I mean, it should probably make it a close game. I think that Illinois might cover the spread in that game. I don't see them winning.
Yeah.
Number 14, Iowa State goes on the road to Baylor. They're a 7-point underdog. Let's see. I'm looking for a Big Ten game. Any more? I'm going to make sure I didn't skip them.
Got Ohio State and Akron.
that must be later on the day. There it is. 48.5 points.
Yep. And
I'm surprised this game's not being played in Akron. Oh, no, I'm not. Only Indiana scheduled those kind of games.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Ohio State, it's unclear whether their starting quarterback is going to play. He's banged up, but I think they're secretly a little bit happy that he's not going to play because they can see what their other quarterbacks can do before the Big Ten season starts. Stroud has been okay, not great, and they're wondering whether any of the other guys might be better. So we'll see.
Now, you talk about a luxury, and when they talk about Indiana's quarterback situation, fans, and this is what I'm telling you, this is the luxury that Ohio State and Alabama and those kind of teams have. They're resting their quarterback.
Yeah.
We're going to rest him.
Yeah. That's what happens when you're a 48 point favorite, I suppose. You feel a little bit comfortable resting the guy. To be clear, IU was able to rest Penix for the fourth quarter against Idaho, but that's a little bit different than resting him the whole game.
I don't know if that's called resting him or that's just taking him out for precautionary reasons. He needs the reps. He doesn't need the rest. He needs the freaking reps. So but that was precautionary reasons. But everybody keeps saying, change quarterbacks. I'm like, what would Saban do? You always see that. Nick Saban had Justin Fields and Tua Tagovailoa and Josh, what's his name? It's up in New England. All three of those guys are in the freaking NFL right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State played with three quarterbacks when they won the national championship. One won the regular season, one won the Big Ten title for them, and another one won the national championship for them. You got three different quarterbacks. Indiana doesn't have that luxury right now. Now, they've got a great quarterback room, and I think the quarterback room at Indiana is going to be the show's almost over. We got to get out of here soon. It's going to be great with Donovan McCulley. You got Jack Tuttle in there, the Hoover kid coming from Texas. It's going to be loaded, but, man, we've overrun. We've talked about so much, had so much fun. It's been awesome. Where are you headed? You headed to Notre Dame, Wisconsin?
I am. I'll be at Soldier Field in Chicago. Should be a lot of fun.
That's where Justin Fields was at Ohio State. Then he transferred.
He was at Georgia. Then he transferred. No. He was at Georgia. Then he transferred to Ohio State.
I thought he was at Alabama. Why am I thinking that?
Yeah.
Who did Tua take over for?
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. That's my bad. That's what I'm thinking of. Jalen Hurts in Oklahoma. My bad. Anyway, we got to get out of here. It's been a blast. Thanks to Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. A big thanks, of course, to Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, John, the producer. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Go out and have yourselves a great weekend. It's beautiful. Looking forward to it. Thanks to everybody. And go out if you're looking for a car, get to Andy Moore Honda and get that checked out. Need a meal, get to Southern Stone. We'll be there this weekend as well. Dylan, thanks a lot, buddy. Have fun.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun as always.
Absolutely, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.